is one of the oldest sculptural media, and it's also one of the easiest mediums to work with.
Today in Across the Fence, a tour of the latest exhibitions on display at the University of Vermont's Fleming Museum of Art. We'll go from the contemporary to the candid, with a stop in between to look at the sexiness of ordinary objects. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. When UVM's Fleming Museum opened in 1931, it was hailed as a practical place of learning. That spirit is alive and well in three new exhibitions that challenge what we know of traditional art forms and make us think about finding the extraordinary in the everyday. To begin, Rebecca Gollin tells us about the Contemporary Work in Wood exhibit. It gives museum visitors a modern view at how today's artists are carving out their own space in one of the oldest sculptural mediums.
An exhibit at the University of Vermont's Fleming Museum is taking a new look at a medium with a long tradition.
The title of the exhibition is In Grain, Contemporary Work in Wood. This medium is a personal love of mine. I did a wood sculpture exhibition at the Fleming many, many years ago, so I was curious to kind of see what the work was like now.
The show features 10 artists, 6 of whom are from Vermont. The work varies widely, with some of the artists working within traditions that go back hundreds of years, and others using new technology to produce intricate pieces. Several of the artists work with recycled or found wood objects.
It is one of the oldest sculptural media, and it's also one of the easiest mediums to work with. You know, hardwood is harder than softwood, but there's a wide range of kinds of wood in the show as well. So you've got everything from work that really reflects early forms of wood sculpture to, you know, where you see the chisel marks and the saw marks, all the way up to, you know, to work that incorporates aspects of our fabricated environment. So surfaces that look like formica, that look like our countertops.
One piece stretches along several walls of the exhibit. It tells the story of an artist determined to finish what he started. It's by Eric Nelson, who taught at Middlebury for many years.
This is a pretty spectacular piece that he began in 2002. It's called 365, An Idea and the Reality. And the initial idea was that he was going to do one sculpture a day from a consistent size block of mahogany, so 2 by 2 by 4. So he completed it in 2014, so it took him 12 years. If you walk through the entire thing, which turns several corners in the show, it covers a wide range of inspiration. So you will find, you know, you can recognize there's a lot of abstract forms, but there are also references to Western art, to Eastern art, to African art, Mediterranean, botanical specimens, seeds and pods, and animals. It's quite an example of artistic determination, I think.
There are connections running through the show, as seen in similar materials or working styles. On one wall, there's the more unusual connection of a teacher and student exhibiting their work side by side. The sleek and polished work of a professor from the Massachusetts College of Art and Design meets at this corner with work by one of his former students of sculptural pieces painted to look like body parts.
There's an interesting comparison between Clark Durbus and Duncan Johnson.
These two Vermont artists both incorporate painting and sculptural elements into their work, but in very different ways.
Duncan is working on, you know, on these flat surfaces with found wood, and is inspired by both quilting and architecture, but the pieces themselves incorporate aspects of painting and drawing and sculpture. And Clark refers to his pieces, which are 3D, and then they have painting on them, refers to them as sculptures of paintings of sculptures.
While sculptural elements run through the show, one artist's figures are startlingly lifelike.
Bruno Walpoth is an Italian artist. He works in a small valley in the Italian Alps. Comes from a very long family and long cultural tradition of wood carving. The piece that we have right here, Julia, is indicative of his body of work. He works from live standers, who pose for him, and he waits until the subject has kind of stopped focusing on the room around him or her and has gone inside, and the look that he captures in his sculptures really reflects that. It's very meditative, and he catches a really kind of soulful view of the individual. There's also very clear evidence of his process in the final work. So you do see the chisel marks, and if you walk around back of this work, it is as if you are looking inside, an old tree trunk.
It's the sign of a master leaving his mark in a show that touches on the fundamentals and differences that come with creating art from wood.
It really is kind of a mini survey in a way of how artists are treating this very, very old medium, aesthetically, technically, and conceptually.
It's new work in an old medium, and it's on display at the Fleming Museum. At the University of Vermont, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. I'm joined now by Janie Cohen, the director of UVM's Fleming Museum of Art. It's great to see you again.
It's great to be here.
Now, we just heard that 6 of the 10 artists in that exhibition are from Vermont. What does that say about the state of art in Vermont?
It says a lot. The state has always been very, very strong in wood creations, both in art and craft. And I was just amazed when I went out to start looking at the work. I did not set a quote on how many artists I wanted, but the work was so strong and compelling and sophisticated. And yeah, I was very excited to see that.
Now, why did you decide to keep all the carvings out, like not behind glass? I was kind of surprised to see that. Not that you want people touching them, but I mean, it was striking that you're amongst the pieces.
Yeah, I think just the tactile quality, and it's always an issue in museums. You want to get that across, but you have to protect the work. But we just felt that it really would diminish it so much by putting plexi bonnets over it. So, and we have very good work study students who are gallery guards. So, yeah.
Well, another current exhibition at the Fleming is Raising Eyebrows with Museum Goers. Across the Fence's Keith Silva stopped by the museum to find out why.
A lot of my friends will be like, oh, sex objects. I'm like, not what you think.
The image that greets visitors to the East Gallery of UVM's Fleming Museum says it all. Let's have a talk about sex.
Every object you see has something to share about sex and gender and sexuality, about human relationships. And so tea sets, wedding dresses, Amazonian headdresses are all ways that people and cultures have learned about gender, have expressed gender, and have expressed sexuality.
Okay, there are a few reclining nudes, some lacy unmentionables, and a couple of chaste statues of randy Greek gods and goddesses. So there's that. What Sex Objects really aims to engage is the largest sex organ, the brain.
We wanted the public to come in, look at the objects, yes, read the labels, but also to look at the objects in new ways, because we are doing things like comparing different cultures or presenting them in ways that maybe people haven't thought about them before.
I felt very smart because I could point out this Narcissa at the fountain.
Yeah.
Is that
This exhibition was curated by the Fleming staff and 40 students in 2 University of Vermont classes, anthropology and art history. Anna White majors in anthropology and linguistics.
Isn't this neat? Yeah. People can really walk through and identify with these pieces, and I've noticed that a lot when people will walk through and kind of be stuck on a piece, and they'll look at something and then not really be able to leave right away, and like keep looking at it. And I mean, I can't read their mind, but I can only imagine that they're drawing some kind of connection and seeing it in a different way than maybe somebody else would see it.
White's favorite piece is one that's up for interpretation, a silkscreen print by Red Grooms entitled Mango Mango.
people had conflicting ideas as to whether or not it was like a mutual like act of desire or like a predatory act of danger. Like is the woman and the man like mutually doing this? I think that they totally are, and I think it's super fun, and they're just really into the dance. Somebody pointed out that like, the woman's like holding a cigarette, and if she was like not into it, she probably wouldn't be like holding it the way that she is. I really like the piece just because it's fun and up to the viewer's interpretation in like a way that not a lot of the other pieces aren't. But this one you can kind of look at it and form an opinion and talk about it with people you're with.
So what I really want to know is, are you interested in still doing museum work after working on this exhibition?
Yes, definitely. And
For Tamialonis, working with students like White puts the Fleming Museum's mission into perspective.
I think giving students access to our collections is really, really important. I consider that an important part of the work that I do every day. I also consider that one of the most inspiring parts of the work that I do every day, because when I'm working with students, when any of us are working with students, those students bring fresh eyes to the collection, they bring fresh perspectives, and exhibitions, classes and then exhibitions, are ways for students to share those new perspectives. And the students from both of these classes worked closely with objects every week, researching them, working with them, measuring them, describing them, drawing them, and giving them access to that is really special.
If you're ready to think sexy thoughts, then Sex Objects is for you. Just be sure to bring that big, beautiful brain of yours along. At UVM's Fleming Museum, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Well, thanks, Keith. If you're just joining us, we're talking about exhibitions now on display at UVM's Fleming Museum. Janie, how often does the museum let students work with these pieces and put together shows?
We do this on an ongoing basis, and we've now been doing, students have been curating shows for about 10 years. And so every other year there is a course that allows, enables students to curate shows. And so we've been keeping them up for a full academic year in our Wilbur room where this show is now.
Mm-hmm. How long does it take to put something like that together?
The students work on it for a semester, and then there's a semester between, generally, where we do a little more tweaking, and a few of the students who are, around stay involved and, and help us continue the curating on it.
Now, where do the ideas come from the students?
Generally, the faculty, one or two faculty members who work on it with Margaret Tamialonis, or another one of our staff members. We, come up with ideas beforehand, but sometimes they're involved in selecting the final idea, and certainly shaping the themes within it.
Now, there's another exhibition with some local flavor. Tell us about the Vermont connection to world leaders and global citizens.
So this is a terrific exhibition of Senator Patrick Leahy's photographs that he has taken over the years of both world leaders kind of at work and at play, as well as shots taken on his travels around the world, and it's very moving.
And how did this come to be?
We knew that that these photographs were available. They've certainly been shown in other spots, but we really wanted the opportunity to kind of curate a group of these photographs and bring them to the greater community. So we began talking to his staff, and it was possible to do it. So.
Well, that's amazing. Now, how long does it take to put these things up and label them and properly display them for the public to see?
We generally start working on an exhibition, depending on the size, between a year to several years in advance. For a small show like this, about a year. And that includes the curation of it, so the selection of the works, the the writing of the labels or the editing of labels if they come to us written. And the senator wrote these labels, so they're wonderful. His own stories.
And so, how long will each of these shows be on display?
This round will be up through mid-December when we close for the holidays.
And what about upcoming events? Can you give us sort of a little tease on some of the other things that you're working on?
Sure. So our spring exhibitions are going to be very exciting. We have a big exhibition of pop art, American pop art, that's coming to us from the Smithsonian's collection.
Wow.
So it's going to be really exciting. And then we have work by Samuel Bach, who is a Holocaust survivor, painter based in Boston, whose work is really quite incredible. So those are going to be our two exhibitions together with sex objects, which will remain up through the academic year.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. For more information about the Fleming Museum and its exhibitions, you can go to the website, flemingmuseum.org, or you can call the museum at 802-656-2090. That's 656-2090. That's our program for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.